What's up, everybody? Today is September 19th. Okay. Today I woke up and my mom said next month, October 1st, 2025, will officially be marked as a year that I've been unemployed. I haven't worked a 9 to 5 since December 2024. My parents expect me to give them $100 every month, even though I've paid for groceries in the past. I've paid for whatever bill they may need and they can't seem to afford in the past. My own grandmother uses money over my head. My dad's mom. She'll be on the phone with me very rarely, but when she is on the phone with me and we're in communication, my grandmother will say, if you don't figure out your life, if you don't go to college, if you don't find a way to get to college, if you don't find a way to get another 9 to 5 job, I'm writing you out of my will. I'm not giving you any money. I'm giving it all to your sister and your brother. My brother has 2 kids and he's 40 years old. No driver's license, no vehicle. My sister is almost 40 years old, mid-30s, lesbian with someone else's daughter she's helping raise. And I'm not trying to be judgmental to my siblings here, even though they've treated me like, we have our own lives, so whatever happens to you happens. It's been a rough few years. It's been a rough life, because my family is filled with narcissists. My mom is a narcissist. My dad is a narcissist. 110%, 200% sure on that. My siblings are both narcissists. Because I'm the accident, the mistake child that my parents, they had sex in their mid-40s and then ended up pregnant with me. Somehow it's my fault that I'm autistic and I don't know how to communicate in person that well. Somehow it's my fault. And that means I should be homeless at the hands of my own blood family. So I wrote something. I've been up pretty much these last few hours. I woke up at like 4 a.m. to write about the legacy of the narcissistic family system. Because I want to understand the history of narcissism. And that is pretty difficult to do when mostly everybody is a narcissist. Everybody is a narcissist because we as human beings, in my opinion, when we wake up in the morning, we're not immediately thinking about other people. We should be thinking about ourselves and how can we take care of ourselves today first, obviously, and then take care of other people second. True narcissists in the evilest way, in my opinion, would be like my family. My dad gets mad at me and yells at me when I need to use the bathroom. I get berated for having to use the bathroom, for wanting to cook in the kitchen, for wanting to learn how to do things on my own. I get bullied all the time by my dad specifically. Growing up, my dad would make fun of me with my sister, bully me. But they were just playing their parts, right? Because of the past life karma I might have. Right? That's how it works. I don't like the glare of my glasses, not one bit. I think I just have to kind of sit down. let's get started. The legacy of the narcissistic family system. The family unit is traditionally idealized as a sanctuary of unconditional love, support, and validation, a primary environment where an individual's identity is nurtured and forged. However, within the distorted ecosystem of a narcissistic family system, this fundamental premise is inverted. Here, in the system of the narcissistic family, this family does not serve the emotional needs of the children. Okay, rather, the children are coerced into serving the pathological needs of the narcissistic parents. This dynamic creates a corrosive environment with profound long-term psychological effects, a reality brutal role of the scapegoat. A critical analysis of the structure reveals it not as a simple case of bad parenting, but as a rigid, self-perpetuating system designed to preserve parental ego at the devastating expense of the children's autonomy and self-concept. I'm sorry if I'm slurring over my words in every single video. I think that's another thing that I've conquered. I mean, not conquered. It's another thing that I have suffered because of my trauma at home. We're always arguing and yelling at each other. There's no calmness and speaking in the voice and the language that it's like you're moving your tongue so fast, so words are jumbling over each other just so my parents can get their point across to me. That's how I've been raised, to essentially jumble over my words and not know what's going on or how to speak properly. But that's also Mercury and Pisces. If you have a Mercury's in Pisces, I know this is not an astrological video, but it does fit into why certain people have these narcissistic family systems that they're born into. Anyways, at its core, a narcissistic family system functions as a closed circuit centered on the narcissistic parent. In this case, it would be both of them, but it's mainly my father who tells my mom to talk to me and yell at me and tell me I'm kicked out, all these things, because he doesn't talk to me. He doesn't confront me or anything. That's on very rare occasions. But we have had full-blown arguments, me and my dad. It's a closed circuit centered on the narcissistic parent whose insatiable need for admiration and lack of empathy dictate all family rules and interactions. The system is inherently unstable as the parent's fragile self-esteem fluctuates, requiring constant external validation and deflection of any blame or inadequacy. To manage this instability, family members are unconsciously assigned rigid roles. My sister has this role, the golden child, okay, who embodies the parent's idealized projection and is used for vicarious achievement. The lost child, myself, who remains quiet and invisible to avoid conflict, and the scapegoat, who is designated to absorb the family's negativity, dysfunction, and shame. I feel like I'm a mixture of the lost child and the scapegoat, but the lost child is actually my brother. He doesn't even come around very often. When he does, maybe it's 3 times a year to bring his kids over. My sister, on the other hand, the golden child, she's always traveling, coming back with magnets for the refrigerator. Oh, Kristen, is she on the phone? Both of us want to talk to her, but somehow she still gets dissed when she's not here. If she took them to a very long movie, or if they went somewhere they didn't really want to go for like a family thing, they'll complain about her and the experience right back at home for me and themselves to hear. Because that's how narcissists work. They're actually insecure little people who don't know how to ever grow up. I don't know. I think it's a trauma thing. Like, they've experienced their own trauma, and they just never got the therapy they needed. But they decided to have kids. So the scapegoat, myself, who is designated to absorb the family's negativity, dysfunction, and shame, which I absolutely have for the last 20 years on Earth. The creation of the scapegoat is a critical act of psychological displacement essential to the system's survival. The scapegoat is targeted as the source of all problems, the problem child, whose very existence explains why the parents are unhappy, stressed, or unfulfilled in their lives after having this child. Okay? This is not based on the child's actual behavior, but is a projected identity. When the professional failure, a personal insecurity, or even simple frustration, that negative emotion is externalized onto the scapegoat through criticism, blame, gaslighting, and verbal or emotional abuse. These effects of this designated role are catastrophic for the individual's development. A child, an adolescent brain, can't handle being raised by narcissistic mothers and narcissistic fathers, let alone both in the same house. Okay? So, what happens? Well, from a critical thinking perspective, this is entirely, I don't see how any of this hasn't been critical thinking, but the most damaging effect is the systematic sabotage of the scapegoat's cognitive and emotional faculties. Firstly, their reality is constantly invalidated through gaslighting, a manipulative tactic where their perceptions, memories, and feelings are denied and twisted. This has happened every single year. I bring up, how my dad is a piece of shit. He doesn't actually love or care about my mother. He's here because she's the one that bought the house. He just wanted to lay up, have some kids, treat him as if he's a king. And I'm being told that it's all in my head. Everything my father's ever done to me, one on one, it's all in my head. It never actually happened. I wanted it to happen. Therefore, my brain somehow manifested it to occur as a past memory. So, firstly, their reality is constantly invalidated through gaslighting, a manipulative tactic where the perceptions, memories, and feelings are denied and twisted. If the scapegoat points out an objective unfairness, you praise my brother for that, but punish me for the same thing, they are told they are too sensitive, imagining things, or trying to cause drama. This relentless invalidation erodes their trust in their own mind, crippling their ability to reason, discern truth, and form confident judgments. The very tool needed to escape the abuse is critical thought that is methodically dismantled. Secondly, the scapegoat's identity is forged in a distorted mirror. Their sense of self is not built on intrinsic qualities, but on a reflected narrative of being flawed, burdensome, and inherently bad. This leads to a cascade of psychological consequences: chronic anxiety and hypervigilance from walking on eggshells in the house, deep-seated shame and low self-worth, and in many cases, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD. Furthermore, their model for relationships becomes pathological. They may unconsciously gravitate towards abusive or exploitative partners in adulthood, which I already have multiple times. I've been in relationships since the age of 12 years old. Replicating the familiar dynamic where love is conditional and intertwined with mistreatment. Alternatively, they may develop a deep aversion to intimacy, fearing that their inherent flaws will eventually be discovered and rejected. The central dilemma of the scapegoat is a paradox that traps them in a no-win situation. If they conform and accept the assigned role as scapegoat, they internalize the abuse and destroy their own psyche. If they rebel and fight back, they provide the narcissistic parent or narcissistic parents with evidence of their defiance and irrationality, thus reinforcing the very narrative they are trying to escape. If they attempt to leave or go no contact, they are often met with smear campaigns where the family rallies around the narcissist, labeling the scapegoat as the ungrateful, unstable villain who is breaking the family apart. The system designed to protect itself punishes any attempt to expose its dysfunction. Ultimately, breaking free from the system requires a Herculean act of critical reevaluation. The scapegoat must undertake a journey to deconstruct the false narrative they were force-fed and rebuild their identity from the ground up. This involves relearning to trust their own perceptions, applying critical thinking to their past experiences, their childhood. Was that really my fault? What was the actual evidence for that accusation? And grieving the loss of the loving family that they never had. It is a painful process of reparenting oneself and establishing firm boundaries. In conclusion, the narcissistic family system is a predatory hierarchy that sacrifices the emotional well-being of its children for the maintenance of a pathological parental ego. The scapegoat, serving as the system's emotional wastebasket, suffers the most direct and severe damage, particularly to their capacity for critical thoughts and authentic selfhood. Their dilemma is a masterclass in psychological entrapment. However, the very qualities that made them a target, often their truth-telling, empathy, and independence, can become the foundations of their liberation. By turning the lens of critical inquiry inward to challenge the inherited falsehoods and outward to recognize the system's mechanics, the former scapegoat can cease to be a reflector of someone else's distortion and finally become the author of their own truth. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.